Welcome back, everyone, to experiment slash episode number 2 of the Abandoned Brothers podcast, where we talk about the issues the military doesn't want to. Due to technical difficulties, this episode has been greatly delayed. We actually tried recording this in person a few months ago, only for the video to be corrupted and completely unusable. After, I think, almost an hour and a half of material, I had like 6.5 minutes of video with bad splicing and video audio syncing. So here we are. I am back with my good friend Nate Wilhelm, who I made during my very short stint in the Colorado Guard. I am actually currently even TDY to Korea. So kind of cool that we can still get this going. And yeah, so um, we'll start off with an introduction. Nate Wilhelm. Nate, tell us a little bit about yourself. You can, I guess, we can start with how I met you in the Guard.
I had been in the National Guard already for a little bit when Will showed up. I can say that we had a hodgepodge of various individuals trying to get in, and there were certain people that were kind of more clean cut than others, and I noticed that Will was one of those individuals and kind of stood out to me, and I think that's something that really kind of grabbed my attention initially, and after that, it just kind of eventually became a friendship after that.
Yeah, for some more context there. I mean, when I swore in May, and then my first, uh, I think we might have even had one virtual drill in June, and I think maybe the first in person was in July.
That sounds about right. Yeah.
Because this was in 2020, so this was during like peak COVID that we were joined up, and it was back and forth about whether we could drill in person or we'd have to have like a virtual Teams call. What is changing monthly. So I remember my first one at the Armory in Colorado Springs. I'm showing up, obviously trying to even just get my bearings because it was my first drill. And I see Nate, and he stood out because he didn't look like he was lost. Um, didn't look, had no idea just how much why, because you had been in recruitment sustainment program RSP for like what, almost a year or a year at that point.
Over a year at that point, a year and change.
And for everyone's awareness, recruitment sustainment program is the pool of people who are in the guard but are waiting to go to basic training. So it is very unusual to be in RSP for a year. Um,
Usually 3 to 4 months is pretty standard for most.
Right. Even so, with my contract, I even had an 8 month waiting period, and that's unusually long.
That was yeah. If that was your initial, that's pretty long.
So yeah, so Nate didn't look lost, and he also just he had a good bearing about him. He was 19 at the time, and I think I would have guessed him at like,
Accurate.
and he I would have guessed him at like 22, 23, just because of the way he was uh, holding himself. So. Uh, and I even remember, I think the drill sergeants had you like take charge of the formation, I think, once we got inside.
Yep.
And oh yeah, I remember you saying like I was the only one who knew how to do like a left face or right face.
The only one that knew how to properly command it out of everyone that was that was there outside of the cadre members. So yeah.
Gotcha. So that's what made me stand out to you. Those junior ROTC skills.
Even though I never did it.
Well, and like it's funny. Even I was watching a unit march over here, and so obviously it's not something we practice marching in the U.S. military, and so anytime like a unit does have to for some type of ceremony, it usually looks pretty bad. And I just think of like, God, I was marching better in junior ROTC. Um,
Yeah.
Get out of the way. Let me show you how it's done. Um, but so why were you in RSP for a year? What was your, because I'm guessing you were initially slotted for 3 or 4 months, right?
Initially, yeah. So April 24th of 2019, I signed the dotted line, so to speak. And my initial ship date was August 12th of that same year. So right at 3 months, pretty much, not even. It was probably a little under 3 months. And the day before, on August 11th, I snapped my wrist. And so obviously you can't go to basic training with a snapped wrist. So that was the initial delay. And I was initially told I was gonna be fine in 6 weeks, cast for 6 weeks, and then I'd be able to get a new date and go from there.
6 weeks. And actually, wait, so they told you it would be 6 weeks after like from finding out about your injury? Because that actually seems kind of too
Six weeks to heal. Six
Oh,
6 weeks to become like cast free, completely back to normal, all that stuff. And that's about what it was. Once I snapped it, I got into a cast, and I was in that for about 6 weeks. And once I took the cast off, I was stiff for like a week or two. But then after that, I got full range of motion back, full strength. If anything, my wrist was probably stronger post break. But at that point, I did not have a new ship date yet. They were trying to find one for me, but it wasn't there yet.
okay. So medically, they said it would take about 6 weeks, but they
Yes.
didn't. Okay, I thought you said that they were saying that administratively. I'm like, there's no way.
No, no, no. Medically, 6 weeks to get better, and then after that, however long it took to find a new ship date for me and get all the paperwork squared away.
Okay, and so even though you were better at about 6 weeks, I mean, I remember you telling me that you could, go back to maxing the push-ups and the PT test after 2 months.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Time wise,
Um,
yeah.
but so okay, so you 6 weeks have gone by, which is like I'm sure they were like thinking that's even the minimum. You're showing that like, hey, it's good to go. Like, watch me do push-ups as kind of
Yeah.
a tell, and they're but so what? Who are you even engaging with, or like how are you then trying to get the train moving again to be like, hey, I need a new ship date?
Primarily, there was two individuals that I was talking to. One of them was one of our drill sergeants. The other one was the first sergeant of the unit. I Usually when I really want something to get done, if people of the lower caliber are not getting it done, I tend to prefer talking to as high a person as I can.
Hmm.
Um, and in this case, the first sergeant was seemingly very receptive to attempting to help me. So I reached out with him quite a bit during that time, that
Okay.
initial time anyway.
But so in at that initial time, I'm not sure if you want to say the first sergeant's name, because I think it was different from because when I got in, it was First Sergeant Zeiser.
It was Iser that I was speaking with at the time. Yes, it hadn't switched over to Sparks yet.
Well, right. I thought because it was what Sergeant Morose before Zeiser.
Moroz was first. He was out before I broke my wrist, so that happened. He was gone and switched over prior to the break.
Yeah, I think they pretty much swapped because Zeiser was my recruiter's NCOIC before becoming first sergeant, and then uh once he became first sergeant, Morose became the that recruiting station NCOIC. So it's like they swapped out.
Yeah.
Um okay, so but that's so you weren't getting help from the like ops NCO or readiness NCO, it sounds like. So you went ahead.
No, they were involved in the talks, but for the most part, my direct communication was not to them. They were the ones communicating with MEPS, is my understanding,
Okay.
to figure out ship date, paperwork, all that stuff. But my actual point of contacts were more primarily one of the drill sergeants and first sergeant Zeiser.
Yeah, I mean, I know that they have one or maybe even two like guidance counselors at MEPS at any given time. I know during mine it was Sergeant Gnome. So
Yeah.
uh I guess that, like they would be like the MEPS liaison. Um so but so you're at like 6 weeks, 2 months, and then you're telling them I'm better. Zeiser's telling you what at this point?
Primarily, that MEPS is asking for more paperwork. They wanted all of the primary care doctor's paperwork. They wanted all of the paperwork from the hand surgeon that I consulted. Um, that consultation was primarily just to be like, hey, is he good to just be in a cast? They wanted to ensure that I did not, in fact, need surgery.
Oh
That
yeah.
would have thrown an entire different wrench into the whole process, I'm sure. But I was cleared from needing surgery by that hand surgeon. They wanted all that paperwork. They wanted the notes from those sessions. Um, just paperwork. At this point, that's what I was told I was that was being waited on. Um, was MEPS getting everything they needed to clear me to acquire a new ship date.
Okay, right. But so you got him all the stuff, and then how long did that take for you to just I could turn in all the documentation?
About 3 weeks is how after that 2 month initial 2 month period to get completely healed. It took me about 3 weeks post that to get all of the paperwork together, everything I had medically, and give it to them.
Okay. And then what happened? How long were you waiting, or were you just kind of
Then there was a 2 or 3 month gap where I didn't hear anything. Um,
and
and
you're the,
finally,
and
after 2 months, I started asking. Um,
sure, and you're just going to monthly drills at this point, right? Like you're still in
yes.
ROs, so it's just waiting. Got it.
Yep. And I didn't initially start, nagging them, so to speak,
Wait, so
out of
I
the
guess
gate, but I wanted to give them some time. But after 3 months, I was like, this is worth checking in on.
of course. So you basically go to two drills, and on the third drill, you start asking.
Yes.
Yeah, and any
Uh,
traction?
and the response I got was initially, we have not heard back yet. Bear with us. We need more time. We haven't been given a response. And then I waited another few months and then checked back in again. And this time I did get a response that I discovered they had actually gotten 1 month after the previous time that I had asked, and they just didn't tell me. Great communication skills there. um,
Oh,
the response they got was they needed paperwork for a prior break that they found on my MRI. The issue with that is that there is no prior break.
wait, and you had an MRI, not just an X-ray?
Correct. Initially, they said they couldn't see anything on the x ray. So they did an MRI to make sure that they could find it, which is crazy to me because my primary care doctor could very clearly point out the line on the x ray because it was a pretty clean break. I mean,
Well,
my hand went like that. So,
like, wait, what? So, I mean, obviously, like the opposite direction, or how? What?
well, so I was bowling, of all things.
I was about to say, let them know, yeah, how you broke it would help.
And I was about to ship out to basic training. I was going to be gone for 5 months at least, and I wanted to bowl one last time before going out there. And I went bowling with a buddy of mine. And for anyone that is worth their salt in bowling, one of the cardinal rules is that you do not use someone else's equipment if their fingers are smaller than yours, because you can risk getting stuck. I made the mistake.
I've been
He
sure
had
that
just purchased a new bowling ball. He wanted me to try it, and I was like, sure. And I got to my release, and instead of it rolling off of my fingers like it was supposed to, it stayed. I got up to here on my release, and then my wrist went like that, like sideways, the
okay,
opposite direction.
got
Uh,
it.
that was unpleasant, to say the least.
But it was clear, but it was like a clear line, but it was like a hairline fracture, right? Like,
Yeah, yeah, essentially.
I mean, I'm not a doctor, but I believe MRIs are for soft tissue analysis, not hard tissue, where X-rays are more than sufficient,
Yeah,
typically.
yep,
So it's odd that they're even going overboard by being like, well, we really got to look at this
yeah. So they got the
over
MRI.
over a bowling accident.
Yeah. You can clearly see the line in the MRI and the X-ray, but the MRI is even more clear. It's pretty obvious there. Um, but apparently, they looked at the MRI and they found an additional line just slightly forward, kind of like right in this region
Okay.
of my hand. And they were like, "This is clearly an old break. We need the paperwork from that too, because you didn't disclose that to us when you enlisted." Well, the reason I didn't disclose it is because it never existed. So there was nothing to disclose.
Yeah.
Um,
Like he's like, I did what now? I broke
and
what?
and that essentially was my response. I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. There has never been a prior break. There's no paperwork I can give you. And they essentially came back and told me I was lying and that I
So
needed to give them the paperwork.
so clearly this supposed injury that in no way had any effect on your life, you were supposed to know about, and you're obviously just being a nefarious individual and not telling us about it.
Yep. Essentially.
I love that that's always the presumption, and I get that obviously some people do hide things at MEPS, but this concept of oh, he might have had an injury when he was 6 years old, but he needs to tell us about it. I'm like, does it affect him in any way, shape, or form at 19 years old? Is it going to affect him in any way, shape, or form going forward? Then why do you care what happened at 6?
Yeah.
I It boggles me. So you're and so that's I'm sure I'm guessing you're even have to explain this to the RSP staff. Like, I don't have any recollection of an injury. There certainly isn't any like doctor visit, therefore no paperwork of an injury. So I don't know what to give them and what because you're not even being able to talk to the MEPS doctors, right? Which I hate. That's part of the I think slowdown of all this bureaucratic process. Like, you're constantly playing this telephone game. It's not the MEPS doctors telling you what's going on. They're relaying it to the guidance counselor, who's relaying it to RSP, who's giving it to you
Yeah.
and telling you this, right?
Yep.
Okay. And so I guess you explain that. And were they sympathetic, understanding, or are they just like, no, you got to find something? Like, what?
My points of contact, my cadre members in RSP were incredibly sympathetic, and they said they would pass along the information. Um, as soon as
Yep.
that occurred, a couple more months went by. They came back and they were like, "Okay, MEPS needs the paperwork for that prior injury." They just repeated their old statement, even though they already knew what the answer was going to be, as if they expected my answer to change. And I was like, as I said before, there was nothing. If an injury is there, I didn't know about it. Never went to the doctor. Never did anything for it. I mean, the number of times I can remember having aches and pains as a child doing things, any
Yeah.
one of them could have been responsible for it, and I would
Like,
have had no clue.
you're like, I
I
don't
was
know. I
told
was
to walk it
7 and I
off.
was climbing a tree and I fell out of it and then I walked it off and went home and like for in time for dinner. Like,
Yeah, I played with my brothers and punched a wall. And I don't know, a million different things could have caused it, and I was like, I don't have anything for you. That's the same answer as before. Um, one more month went by, and they came back and told me, we need you to write a written statement, physically handwritten statement, for us to give to MEPS saying that you do not have any paperwork for this. And I was like, my word is not good enough for this. And they were like, no, we need it in writing that it's not, that you don't have anything for this.
yep.
So I obliged. I wrote it, and I gave it to them. And that was the beginning of a 4 month gap where they had zero information for me.
So that it sounds like my case where they're like, hey, we need, like, after waiting months for my knee waiver, they were like, we need a current orthopedic surgeon evaluation of your knee and whether they think you're good to go. And I replied back, is like, do you know how I know you didn't look at my packet? Because I gave you that. It was less than 60 days old of an evaluation from an orthopedic surgeon. So how current of an orthopedic evaluation does it need to be if 60 months doesn't cut it? And they finally, someone looked at my packet at that point. And then later, a different like issue was MEPS, no, NGB saying, we can't take you because you have a VA disability rating. I'm like, that's fascinating because I never filed with the VA. And same thing. I had to do a handwritten note saying I never filed with the VA.
Yeah.
So, all
Crazy to
right.
me how that makes all the difference.
Yeah. For So handwritten, you're basically giving like a sworn statement saying I have no doctor's visit. It's not that I'm hiding or withholding or
Yeah.
omitting. It's that I didn't know there was anything wrong with my hand there.
Yeah, just zero knowledge of it. I would have told them had I known. Um, I was very forthcoming when I initially sat down and did all the paperwork when I signed up, in the recruiter's office. And I left. I told them everything. I left nothing out.
Okay, right.
Um,
I
and
mean, you were still 19, like made of rubber, etc. Like there was like you didn't even think there was anything to hide. So yeah, you're just being like
yeah,
forthcoming about everything, right? Like,
yeah.
okay. Um,
Um, so end of that 4 months goes by. I end up checking in again because they're not giving me anything, and I'm like, what's going on here? This is not going the way, we need something to move here. I'm trying to get a new ship date. You guys aren't giving me anything. I know that they said, nothing. Do you guys have anything for me? And they came back and like, yeah, we got correspondence about a week ago. My initial thought was, okay, why didn't you call me when you got the correspondence a week ago? Um, but they said yes. We need documentation from your hand surgeon that you consulted originally, over one individual line that was written in the notes when I had that consultation. If you read that packet that has all the notes from that consultation in it, everything says that I was fine and good to go. Everything. There
like
is
that's
one line
always like
about
the outcome is saying like he's fine. Like that's
the
the
whole thing says he's fine, and the outcome says I'm fine.
okay.
There's one line about halfway down that page. It was about a 3-page document, but on the second page, about halfway down, the hand surgeon decided to include a personal musing over something that he noticed.
Okay.
Essentially, what that musing was is that he saw a slight bone abnormality that looked similar to something referred to as Kienbock's disease. It's a not incredibly common blood disease that acts very similarly to osteoporosis, just in the reverse order of how osteoporosis works. Um,
I'm not familiar with osteoporosis myself, so
Osteoporosis is essentially your bones becoming brittle from a lack of calcium, but they become brittle from the inside out. Kienbock's disease, the blood basically poisons the bone and causes it to become brittle from the outside in.
got it. Okay.
So it's just in the reverse order for a different reason. It's not the same cause as osteoporosis,
Right. You just
um,
meant reverse it as far as the direction. Yeah.
but direction of how deterioration occurs, it's in the reverse order.
Got it.
He then proceeds in the next line to state very clearly, this patient does not have Kienbock's disease and will never have Kienbock's disease. I just found it interesting that it looked similar to it.
But he even so it wasn't. I thought it was like a hey, this looks like Kienbock's disease, and it was like hey, you need to get clarification on that. Within the same note, he said this is not Kienbock's. It just looks similar.
Yeah, it's in the next line. Like the very next sentence that he says is the clarification saying that I don't have it and will never have it. There's
And
no
they
medical history. No one in my family going back has it. There's no precedent for it for me to have it. There's nothing that would lead them to believe that I could have it, with the exception of that first line. And then
okay.
the contradictory line right following it.
Yeah.
um, they wanted a another consultation and clarification from that doctor, and they requested a second MRI at this point, which I don't understand the reasoning for, uh, at all.
No. Especially, I mean, MRIs are obviously much more expensive than X-rays, and they normally don't request them unless you actually require one.
Yeah.
And you're not in the military yet, so this is all coming out of pocket for you, right?
Yes, luckily the X-rays and the MRIs were, cheaper than they probably normally would have been. My primary care doctor was able to get an MRI for about 500, which is pretty cheap
Yeah. No, that's
overall.
I mean,
But
I guess you are technically in at this point, like with RSP, but I don't know if TRICARE would have covered anything like that. But I know before
yeah,
that.
my
Yeah.
understanding is that I didn't have access to TRICARE until post basic, so I don't believe that.
Okay, I wasn't sure myself. It's been too long since I've been in.
That's my understanding is that you have to finish basic before you can apply for TRICARE. And then anything that occurs during basic, they treat because it occurs at basic.
Well, yeah, you're on active duty orders at that point.
Yeah. So no, I didn't have insurance or anything, but I had a very reasonably priced primary care doctor. So yes, the 500 was still, a
I
not
mean,
insignificant sum of money. But
I
at the
was gonna
same
say, I'm
time,
like, even $500 for a 19-year-old is not an insignificant amount of money.
yeah. In this regard, I am lucky that I did not actually end up having to pay for it. My father stepped in and assisted on that front. I ended up paying him back for it, but he fronted me at the beginning, so at the time it didn't hit.
Sure, but and all for what? Because an MRI would further indicate whether you had keen box or not.
That's it. And funny enough, that's not the scan you use to determine Kienbach's disease. So I don't understand.
Okay.
um,
Maybe just looking for more up to date of like, hey, like, to maybe I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe they were trying to show that the bone was healed at that point, that there was no line.
which I would love to find out their thought process behind it. I never did. I don't know why they requested the second MRI. I was never told.
That's weird that they didn't put like a justification for it. Um,
Yeah.
like medically speaking, it's weird. Administratively speaking, I'm not surprised. These people don't ever seem to feel a requirement to justify anything.
Yeah.
Uh, unfortunately. So, so you even go, you get the second consultation,
Yep.
and what was the doctor's reaction when you explained the situation?
I got a little bit of a chuckle out of him actually.
Good.
He kind of found it a little bit ridiculous. He rewrote up a second consultation note, and he told me he made sure to omit any mention of Kienbach's disease in the
Yeah.
second set of notes. There was nothing in there. He didn't even mention it. Completely ignored it
Oh,
the second time.
well, I wasn't sure if it was better to completely ignore it or say like he does not have like green box, like clarify his previous.
And I thought about that. His thought process was that he would uh, not mention anything about it in that note. And then if they needed additional clarification, I could have them call him and he
Okay.
would tell him that over the phone.
Okay. Good. Good.
So
So
he gave me contact information to give to them if they had any further questions.
yeah. So you're so you send all this in. You're probably what, close to a year mark now at this point of from when you swore in. I'm guessing you're at like 10, 11 months.
At this point, we're well past that because I broke it not well past that. I'm probably a little over a year at this point.
Okay, so
So
yeah, I'm not.
post
I
swearing in, we're right about a little over a year, probably 2 months past a year at this point.
but because yeah, it's obviously going back and forth. It's months in between correspondence. Every time something happens where it's like you have to talk to MEPS, it's like 2 to 4 months goes by, right?
Yeah, yeah. So we're probably at about 14 months or so at this point. Um, we're
Okay.
we're rapidly coming up on the first in person drill with you at this
Okay.
point.
Yeah, so it was over a year that you met me. Got it.
Yeah.
All right. So you by the time you had met me, you had already gotten the second MRI, second consultation, sent that up. And
Yes.
so what happens next?
After that, another waiting period, ironically enough. And I kept getting, now this time at this point, there's a waiting period, but every single month that I'm going to drill, I'm asking. At this point, I'm in a position where I'm trying to nag them to try to get something moving.
You realize that's the only way anything happens.
And it was the same response. We haven't heard back. We haven't heard back. Haven't heard back. I did have a moment of consternation with one of the drill sergeants 1 month because I made the mistake of asking, "Have you asked?" When they said they hadn't heard anything, or were they just waiting for MEPS to magically show up with an answer
Right. Like,
and
have
come
you
back and
bothered?
be like,
Have you repinged them? Have you followed up?
so I did ask that. The drill sergeant was none too pleased that I asked that question. Luckily for me, the first sergeant was in the room for that, and assured me that they had been asking. Now, whether or not that is valid, I don't know. I'm not going to say one way or the other, but I was assured at that point that they had indeed been asking,
Well, good on them.
and that
Good on
he
them.
understood my thought process in asking the question. So I appreciated that.
But so what? The drill just thought you were disrespectful for deigning to ask if they've followed up.
Yes, I assume they felt that I was questioning whether or not they were able to do their job at this point and doing what they were supposed to be doing. But at the same time, no, I wasn't doing that. But in my defense, when you have that many gaps between things occurring, it's only natural to think, okay, are people actually trying to further this along, or are they just waiting for things to happen naturally?
Well, right, and I can understand the drill if you are legitimately doing everything you can, like yeah, I can understand having a bit of a defensive reaction there.
Of
But
course.
the fact that months, like I said, months are going by between every correspondence and I, it's obviously not being sped up any further by the RSP staff now,
Right.
and maybe they're trying to just blame it all on MEPS, and maybe MEPS is that incompetent, but I doubt it. I think there's both there.
I think so. Now I will grant that Denver Maps is not exactly known for being speedy. My understanding is that Denver Maps and LA Maps are kind of across the board considered to be the two slowest.
Wait,
It's
you heard that independently of my whole
it
story?
so I actually heard that again after you told me. So I heard that initially from you, was the first person I got that from, but then I had people corroborate that later.
I was gonna say, I'm like, guess which two MEPS I had? Yeah.
Yeah, so those are the two that, from my understanding, are the two slowest in the country. So there is a little bit of that, but I do believe that there was some lack of urgency from the RSP staff as well.
Right. And I'm already sure there's maybe would be people, you know, in the comments. I hope I have a comment section eventually. Talking about, well, yeah, they're the largest MEPS, some of the largest MEPS in the country. I'm like, fine, then they should be better staffed. I don't know what to tell you. That doesn't like being large doesn't give you an excuse to be dysfunctional.
If anything, it gives you more of an excuse not to be.
Yeah, it's like great. Like you have to be like on your A game to actually process it. I get that you're, not one of the smaller like Omaha, Nebraska or like Amarillo, Texas, like, and you probably have more flow like of applicants coming through. Great. Then you need to be all the better on your processes.
Yeah,
Weird that,
absolutely.
we actually just expect you to do a job even if it's hard. um,
Um, so so at this point, we're 14 months in, 1 month prior to the first drill I had with you. Um, like I said, at this point, I'm checking every single month. I'm asking every month. I had that moment of consternation. Um, Post that 14 months, 3 months later, that sounds about right. About 3 months later, I I'm having a conversation with them. I'm asking, I'm like, hey, where are we at? Is there anything? What are we at? They requested a second written note saying that I did not have a prior break that I could give them paperwork for. Out of nowhere. Like I thought that was done and over with at this point. Apparently not. They're asking for a second handwritten note.
did they even
And
say like,
in my
hey,
head, I thought, did you lose the first one?
yeah, I was wondering, did they actually need another one, or did they just not even realize that you had submitted one already?
So I did ask. I didn't say what I just was thinking at the time. But my question to them was,
Sure.
is MEPS aware that I did send in one already, or are they asking for a second one of another tone?
Yeah.
And they said, we're unsure. We just know that they requested a handwritten note saying that you did not have a prior break. So I, instead of being like, can you check with them? Because I was fearful of another multi-month gap. I went ahead and gave them one, and I asked that they, when they hand over that paperwork, to mention that there should already be one in my file.
I would have included that in my second handwritten. Be like, as I
And
stated
in
previously,
hindsight,
this
you're correct. I probably should have. I didn't think of it at the time. But I handed that in. Um, I then go another 2 months with nothing, and at this point, my father is getting more exasperated over the gaps than I am.
good. And this is actually where I want to break. Like I know last time we attempted this, I kind of gave a little bit more of your background, your family background. And actually let's pause for a second there because like let's
Sure.
talk about your dad
Yes,
and his service. He was a Marine, correct? Is a Marine.
that is correct. Yes, once a Marine, always Marine. That never goes away. But yes, he served in the Marine Corps
Okay.
before transferring to Microsoft as a military contractor.
Right. And
Yes.
he did that for what, 4, 6, 8 years?
He was in the Marine Corps for, I believe, 8, and then he was in the Marine in a contractor with Microsoft for 15.
Okay.
Um, and during that time, what's funny is he actually ended up getting deployed overseas more often with Microsoft than he did with with the Marine Corps. He was
Oh,
stationed overseas with the Marine Corps, but he actually ended up getting deployed as a contractor,
wow.
with certain units. In He went to Afghanistan, Iraq, Kuwait. He was
I
all over
wish that were
there.
my contracting experience. Sounds like he
Say
had a good
again.
time. I wish that was my contracting experience. Sounds like he's had a better time.
Yeah, he was. I mean, he would be gone for 6 to 8 months out of every year. It was come home, be home for a little bit, leave again.
Yeah.
But we got our phone calls with him. One of his stints, we ended up getting. We had one phone call a month, 5 minutes per phone call was all we got with him. He couldn't tell us where he was. Um, we knew somewhere in the Middle East, but we didn't know exactly where in the Middle East.
Sure.
And at one point, this actually happened 2 separate times, but one of them was a little bit more severe, where we were on one of those 5 minute phone calls with him, and we start hearing like mortars go off in the background, or what we thought were mortars. And then we didn't hear from him for like 3 months. And we were, paychecks were still coming in. So my mother assumed that we were all good. um, and then about 3 months later, we get another phone call, saying, "Hey, I'm good. Sorry about that." Turns out, not mortars, so all good. It was test munitions essentially.
Oh,
So
gee.
nothing
I
serious.
was, I was gonna say, I'm like, it would be unusual for a Microsoft contractor to be like, not in harm's way. I wasn't sure how that would have happened, but
Yeah, no test munitions, nothing dangerous of any kind. But apparently, their phone lines, their ability to have comms out was damaged for a period of time,
okay, makes
in
total sense.
some mistake or something. So we didn't hear from him for a few months, but he was fine. That was a huge breath of relief, to say the least.
Oh
Um,
yeah, I'm good. Were you like 10 at the time or something?
uh, 8. I was
Got it.
8.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So uh okay, my point is like your dad, served honorably in the Marine Corps. You're the oldest of 4 siblings.
I am the
Or sorry,
second oldest of 4 siblings. I have an older sister and 2 younger brothers.
sorry, yeah, oldest son of 4 siblings.
Yes.
And I mean your brothers also actually have gone in. One went in through Army Guard as well.
Yes.
Um,
So my younger brother, Andrew, he went in through Army Guard. I do believe he intends to stay that way. Now he does work full time for the guard, so he's considered active guard
Sure.
at this point.
And
And my
then
youngest brother is in the Air Force.
got it. So you're clearly from a family of nefarious troublemakers, who just wouldn't, it's clearly indicative that you wouldn't have gone on to any type of honorable military service yourself. Um,
Clearly.
you were trying to get in, you were interested in law enforcement at the time, right? So you were trying to get in to be military police, correct?
Correct, with the intention of later using the GI Bill to get a degree and go and join police force of some kind.
Yeah, which
Um,
so yeah, it would have given you experience and the money for the degree that way. So
yes.
really way to go about it typically. Yeah. Which is why your parents, I'm sure, were also like pushing hard, like, hey, this is a really great deal. This is what you should be doing, right?
They really wanted me to go in. I can say with confidence that I had some. I've always been a very ambitious person, um, and I had some previous ideas and ambitions and things that I wanted to do that I did not exactly think through all the way.
Yeah.
Now, to be fair, I was a
You,
kid, but
you mean an 18-year-old kid doesn't think everything through clearly? That's
but this was the first plan that I had that they were really on board with. And so they were really pushing for me to do this one because they didn't want it to fall apart and me come up with another, half thought out plan again.
sure. Yeah.
Um, which I've definitely had some sense, to be fair.
That's there's nothing wrong with that. That is a mark of ambition. So
Um, yeah, they were really pushing. In fact, after everything ended and I ended up getting out, which we'll get to the end of that story. But after everything happened, they were really pushing for me to try to get back in, which I wanted to for a short period of time. And then I ended up just deciding for me that it wasn't worth it for me to do that, and I wanted to change gears in the path that I was taking. But to this day, if you ask my mother what she wants me to do, she would probably say she wants me to try again. She's still
yeah.
kind of hung up on that, and I'm like, it's been 3 years since I got out, if not a little more now. And so I'm done. I'm good. She probably is still a little bit hung up on it though.
Man, that's funny. I mean, yeah, I mean you're on to good things now, but okay, so yeah, I wanted to establish that. It was like kind of to establish your motivations, your incentives for getting in. That sounds like you're from, this kind of like typical like American family. You were just trying to join the military for both the experience and for the education benefits, which is like the number like top things that the military advertises as like the benefits of joining the military, especially even just something like the guard, where it's like, hey, part-time warrior, you can do this. Um, so it sound on paper, it sounds like you're just everything that the like you're a prime candidate
And
in all
that's
of the
what my
ways.
recruiter told me.
Literally, okay. Your recruiter was just like, hey, you're, like kind of
And
the perfect applicant.
I mean, I had the background for it. I had the mindset. I was in decent shape. I could max
Yeah.
out or close to it the PT tests every time. It I mean I was as ideal as they could get without having somebody come in that was just an absolute unit.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, you sure. I mean, most 19-year-olds aren't super huge. But and that's when I was trying to say the way you held yourself. I meant, yeah, the way you carried yourself, the way you comported yourself. You were very, respectful, squared away. Um, Certainly compared to uh a lot of the other, just new poolies who are obviously trying to figure it out. Um, So, ideal candidate in all other ways except for a supposed rare blood/bone disease called King Box.
Supposed.
Supposed. Yeah.
Yep.
So you sent up another handwritten statement saying,
Yes.
I was unaware of any prior injury or break. I was not trying to hide or omit anything. And then what happens?
So, so as I said, another couple months goes by, and at this point, my father is more exasperated over this whole situation than I am. I
Yeah.
was not happy, but he was bordering on the edge of livid at this point, which I don't blame him. Absolutely. Which is when he had an idea that I went through with. And I had actually had a little bit of, I don't remember if I found out before or after from you on this particular regard. But his idea was that I have a congressional inquiry put
Okay.
into the guard to try and move
Move.
things along.
Yeah.
And I do remember that you've had some experience with that.
Yeah.
But I don't remember if I knew about that before or after this at that point in time.
I want to say we
Um,
talked afterwards, honestly. So
I believe so. So he had this idea, and so I went through with it. I went and put in this inquiry, um, and
I think the inquiry should have been at MEPS specifically, not like RSP or the guard, but yeah.
yes, yes, I agree. And I believe they kind of dove into a couple different avenues, but it was primarily for the RSP portion of ensuring that everyone was actually trying to get things moving.
Sure.
Um, did not hear anything for uh, 4 months after this, but I did notice a slight change
At drill.
at drill. I did notice that I stopped being put in charge of formations. I stopped being asked to lead things. I stopped the respect that I had been given by the cadre members prior to this kind
Yeah.
of went away, which leads me to believe that when the inquiry came in,
Yeah.
they were not happy about it.
Yeah. Which
um, I was not necessarily treated badly,
just differently.
but definitely differently. I felt that I had developed a rapport with the cadre members and everyone else that had been there for a little bit, and I had developed a level of respect, and I guess you could call it status at that point. And all that felt very much stripped away,
Yeah.
as if I was just somebody that had just showed up at that
Okay.
point.
Hmm.
Um,
That's unfortunate. I mean, I can somewhat like I wish the inquiry I wish the scope of the inquiry was leveled directly at the head of MEPS versus targeting RSP. It sounds like the RSP staff doesn't sound like they were speeding anything up. It sounds like they could have been faster, but they weren't the ones slowing everything down and holding everything up either. Like that was
I,
my
I would agree. I believe it is MEPS that's ultimately the culprit there. And I really do feel that if the inquiry had been into MEPS, likelihood is nothing would have changed
sure.
in terms of how I was being treated and everything else. I mean that it changed so drastically as to the point things they knew I knew how to do already. They were acting as if I didn't, and
Was it different staff or different cadre at this point? Or
no,
was it same ones treating? Okay.
same ones treating me completely differently.
Yeah.
Um, this brings us to the end of 2020
Yeah.
is our timeline here.
Yeah.
I had
I can.
showed up to the November drill the prior month of 2020. And in December, I was prepping to go to December's drill when I get a call from one of the sergeants, and I believe this one was one of the like the readiness NCOs or like the liaisons, so to speak. If you'll remind me of the acronym used, the NCI.
Oh, sorry. So there's like, oh, NCOIC.
Yes, that. I do believe this was one of those. This sergeant had been around for a while. I already knew him. Um, so it wasn't like this was a new person. But I get a call from this sergeant essentially saying the Army Guard has intentions of discharging you. They don't believe they're going to be able to get a new ship date for you before the end of your 24-month period.
Mhm.
And if you do not ship in your first 24 months, you're automatically released, and then you have to wait 6 months if you want to try again. That's
Right.
that's their
And,
procedure.
and so
Um,
basically, so it sounds like MEPS was like, well, we don't really want to take this guy, so we're just going to slow roll until he's forced out anyway.
Essentially, that's what it sounded like. Yeah. The inquiry unfortunately came back and essentially told me that they could not find any wrongdoing and therefore they couldn't cause anything to change. Was the verdict I got. So
Yeah, okay.
he calls and tells me that they have intentions of discharging me. Given that I'm in the pipeline to be discharged, there was no point in me going to drill.
I know where you're getting to, but let me pause there for a second. So, uh, for that inquiry, which do you know which congressman's office that was through?
I don't remember the name. Lamb, maybe?
Doug Lamborn.
Yes. Yes, I believe it was probably Doug Lamborn, I believe.
Good. That's going to come back around. I wanted to throw that out there.
Okay.
So and so Lamborn, who is the representative in Colorado Springs or was, uh, his office said, "Oh yeah, we asked about it, but we could find no wrongdoing, even though these people are saying that you have Kienbock's disease when they have no evidence." And like that's because that's what's holding you up, right? It's not even like the break. They're saying we can't take him because he has Kienbock's disease,
Yeah,
or that he might have Kienbock's disease. Ooh.
yeah, that and then the previous break. But I think at this point the previous break part was they were kind of ignoring it. It was really the Keen box portion.
Well, so my point is like, okay, if they're trying to say like, oh, we can't take you because you omitted this, like even the way the regs are written, it's like if you omit something that is not something that would hold you up, like then if it's not something that would preclude your accession, then there is no admission. Like it's the I used to know all the freaking reg numbers, sadly, but because of my deal, but that's even how it's written. It's like, hey, like if you omit something that doesn't preclude your service, then that's not considered an omission because it doesn't matter. So if they're trying to be like, oh, you omitted this, but and we can't take you because you omitted something, no, that's not how that works. And if it is something, fine, you have to actually state like why that precludes, like, and where in the 6103.03 does it say, oh, like that break on the wrist is like you can't take from service. So I don't there's no real rhyme or reason here. They're being capricious in their denial. And Doug Lamborn's office said, we couldn't find anything.
Yep.
Okay, got it.
So
So now they're telling you you're being out processed. And because you're in the docket to be out processed, there is no point in you showing up to drill.
well, he gave me a choice. He said that I could show up to drill, but realistically, because I was already in the pipeline to be out processed, there me going would serve no purpose.
Sure. And they're
Um,
probably trying to save like a few dollars in the budget that way by like, hey, if you don't show up to drill, we don't have to pay you.
and he was like, whichever one, your job or us, whichever one makes you more money, you're welcome to choose.
Yeah.
And I'll make sure that you are marked down as exempt and good to go for the remainder of your time before we call you with discharge paperwork. And I was like, well, I'm going to make more money on my actual job than I will going to this drill. So if it's okay, mark me as exempt, and I'll sit out and wait. Which is what I did. He said, okay, good, I've got you. You're exempted. You're good to go for the remainder of the months.
And this was with the readiness NCO, I think was the term you were looking for before.
Yes, yes. Um, and I thought that was it. He said there was no need to call in, there was no need to check in every month. I was good to go until somebody called me saying we have discharge paperwork for you. And so that's what I did.
How long were you waiting even for that call?
6 months.
6 months. And when you got that call and you finally go in and look at the uh, discharge paperwork, what does it say the reason was?
So the initial discharge paperwork when I walked in was dishonorable discharge for going AWOL for the previous 6 months.
Wait, it actually said dishonorable?
That was the category, yeah.
I didn't even realize that. I thought like it was still like a uh even a uncategorized discharge,
Oh
but like
no,
that
yeah.
just that the purpose was you were
Dishonorable for going AWOL.
no okay. I'm I- I'm I'm amazed your dad didn't grab his gun at that point. I would have been murderous.
So my dad came in with me to sign the paperwork because at this point he wanted to be fully invested in everything and really
Yeah,
pay attention and read it, which I appreciate because his experience having already been in the military and his time in the workforce and everything else far obviously far outweighed anything that I had,
yeah,
and he would have been able to see and spot things that I wouldn't have necessarily been able to.
of course.
In this case, I was the first one to read it, so I read it first, and then I was like, "You might want to read this," and handed it to my dad. You
Okay, so he
could
was there
see
presently for this. Yeah.
physically in the room, sitting right next to me for this.
Okay.
You could see the veins begin to pop out of his forehead.
Yeah, because
he
a
was
dishonorable discharge is tantamount to a felony.
he was not happy, to put it as mildly as possible. um, and
I wish I could have seen that.
yeah, I've only seen my dad go red in the face a couple of times in my life, and that was one of them. To yeah, but I
And
handed
what's
it to
crazy,
him.
like I've heard stories of people who legitimately go AWOL and don't get a dishonorable discharge from the guard.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Um, and long story short, I respect my dad's restraint because when he handed the paper back and pointed out the issue, which he did to
Well, your dad's very professional. I'm not surprised at all.
and at this point, this is First Sergeant Sparks who was in the room, so they had
Right.
switched at this point.
Right.
When my dad handed that sheet back to him and set it down and asked him what that was about, his demeanor could not have been more professional. And I am shocked that he was able to hold it together. I'm not really shocked. That's pretty on par for my father, but
Yeah.
he's
But then like Sparks was like, what? You were AWOL, right? Like that was his reaction.
yes, and I was like, no, I wasn't. I was exempted from showing up to drill. Was my response, and he said, no, you weren't. Don't try to spin that.
Like
Was his
you
sentence.
think you think I'm lying. Got it. Yeah.
And I said, no, I got a call from saying that I didn't say from initially. I said, I got a call saying that I was being out processed and there was no reason for me to show up. Like it would have been pointless for me to show up. So I was told I was good to go. And this was the only point at which Sparks said something that made me lose a little bit of respect for him. And that was who? The
Why?
way he said it was very clearly, I'm not
Oh,
expecting you to be able to give me an actual answer right now because you're
got
late.
it. Incredulous. Yeah.
And I said, him, because the guy who told me was in the room.
That guy's sitting right over
Right over
there.
there. He was at the end of the table, right over there. And he looked up and was like, did you tell him that? Clearly expecting a no. And I just watch as this sergeant goes, uh, yeah, I kind of maybe remember something similar along those lines. That was pretty much exactly how he said it. That tone, that inflection. And you can just see, I look back over at Sparks and I just watch him go, come back in 3 weeks. We need to fix this paperwork.
And I think I remember I was at the armory for something when I saw you and your dad coming back in 3 weeks. I
Yes, I remember you being there.
remember you're crossing you in the parking lot. Yep.
Yeah.
I think
Uh,
that was, dude, that was the first time I met your dad.
I think so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was brief, but that was like my first encounter with him. Yep.
Yeah. And so they fixed it. Ended up being uncharacterized failureship within 24 months.
Right.
Um,
What it should have been.
what it should have been the first time, and it was fixed. I signed it and was out the door.
Sure. I mean, they I don't know how they couldn't even have switched the paperwork on the fly. You know that they have that like all like boilerplated out. So they should have just been like, hang on, sign this one instead. But
Yeah.
whatever. I won't. That's that's pennies compared to the grander scheme here.
Yeah.
Um Good on the readiness NCO for actually like admitting it. If he called you a liar, I think that probably would have been what set your dad over the edge.
Probably.
um
And I'd
and
be fearful to see what would have happened if he had been set over the edge.
And like what's crazy about that, like I said, I've heard stories of people actually going AWOL and not getting a dishonorable discharge. So why they felt compelled to go after you, I will never understand. And I'm assuming that readiness NCO would have been part of that paperwork process. Maybe that's assuming the worst of him because he should have been the one to even just been like flag it and be like, no, 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 I cleared him, I exempted him. Like it should have never gone to that point.
Yeah.
So I nothing about that makes sense, but okay. And I'm sure at this point you're ready. You're done. You're like, I just want out. Please just
On
sign the
out.
paper. I want away. I want away from the entire guard. Screw you guys. Like I'm just gonna go live my life.
I mean, I ended up 2 years and 3 months from time of signing the dotted line to signing this discharge paperwork
Right.
for
Nothing.
nothing outside of gaining a friend
It's
and
a
learning
secret.
that I didn't want to go back in the military.
Yeah, I say you got your secret level clearance. I think is about the only lasting benefit that happened from that
And that
whole.
did actually end up helping me later. I ended up getting a different job with it before getting, my current job.
Yep.
Um, and
But that's it. That's like your one benefit after over 2 years of trying to like give your time to the guard.
and
And then
because I never shipped, I do not get the benefit of the GI Bill. So the whole reason I went in the first place was kaput.
right. Yeah, you'd have had to put in more time even. But yeah, because yeah, for for everyone's awareness, it is unusual that in the guard, when you swear in, your time of service starts right away because you are going to monthly drill, but you're in this weird administrative category because you're not really still a full-fledged soldier yet, obviously, until you go through initial training, basic training. So you get some expectations and benefits, but not others. And it's similar to DEP, delayed entry program, when it comes to active duty.
Yep.
Except that with DEP, like your time in service doesn't start until you actually ship. But so it's a weird kind of a weird thing with the guard that makes it different from active duty. Um, yeah. So administratively, organizationally, I get that they obviously focus on the 80s, not the 20s. That they have to constantly be looking at the numbers and be looking at what affects the most people, what has the largest numbers to it. They're not postured or really incentivized to look at the 20s or even the 10, let alone the tens or the fives or the ones. So So they tend to just think that this is just like, oh, it's a one-off, whatever. We don't care. We just have to like sweep that under the rug and move on.
Yep.
But and maybe this is like a little cheesy, but it makes me think of um MLK Jr.'s quote where it's like an injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere.
Yeah.
Because you know that that 1% that you're ignoring or that you wrote off might have gone on to be a Medal of Honor recipient. Like you don't know. And all of this, like we kind of laid out, like had no other medical issues, had no um uh like law enforcement type moral waivers, like you and a lot of this whole system is absolutely postured for like the 18 to 20-year-old like fresh out of high school type kid, and you were in that category. Like for me going in, I was very different. Anytime you come in with like more life experience, it's like the system barely knows how to handle you. But the whole process is even geared towards people like you, and yet you still got hung up on an imaginary disease.
And what's ironic is that both of my younger brothers, when they went in, prior to that break, I had never broken a bone
Really.
or had anything. Both of my brothers have broken at least 6 bones each at
Right.
some point in the past.
And so they right, and they just submitted for that and like got cleared or what? Like or
I'm
just
pretty sure my brother didn't even mention the ones that were more than 15 years old.
nor should you have to. Uh yeah. So and like they're doing good things. So for the Army and Air Force. But yeah, and this is what I'm trying to point out is that like because it's just like everyone just considers it a one-off, like they're just like, oh, whatever. And like it's the issues that they don't want to talk about. Like this stuff still happens. Like during the same time frame, this is 2020. This is during peak COVID, and I'm starting to read headline after headline of the most dire recruiting shortage since the end of Vietnam.
Yeah.
Yet we take someone like you who was joining for all the right reasons, all the right intentions, had all the right background, resume, etc., and we treat you like crap for 2 years, 3 months, almost give you a dishonorable discharge, and then your mom still wants you to go back in. Like,
Which I understand the premise behind it. I do give her the benefit of the doubt there. I understand why, but
I'm not knocking at your mom. I'm trying to explain to your mom why you were less than thrilled about the idea of trying again.
yeah,
Because yeah, most people wouldn't. And I even have another friend in the Colorado Guard who went through a not quite as bad, but another experience. I'm gonna maybe reach out to him, see if he could be doing an episode here. Um,
absolutely,
but I know I've been trying to watch the time. I know you were had other commitments tonight. Good on you for going to help him out. Um,
absolutely,
Thank you very much for being willing to kind of like tell the story and show like this is a issue where it's like there are very legitimate issues with accessions, and a lot of it is even some of it is com- like legal administrative like problems with the like the documented process, and a lot of it's even just attitude, just the absolute extreme over the top risk aversion.
yeah.
It's it's obscene, and I with the surge in recruiting now, where a lot of people are coming back in, that's not going to get better because they can just be like, oh, why do I have to take you when I can just take the next guy? So, um, do you have any parting comments? Anything else you want to say?
Um, other than saying that I think that this series is important, and I'm hopeful and optimistic that it'll get some traction. I think that it's something that is not talked about enough. So it's good to see someone trying to bring light to an issue that is not not brought to the surface as much as it should be.
Thanks, man. All right. I appreciate you, brother. And yeah, I'll let you go.
Sounds good.
Bye.